talking about the environment. Time to warm up. Look at the picture. What do you understand? Time to know. Anything which is required or used to sustain life is called a resource. A natural resource is a resource obtained from nature. Resources are all these requirements of organisms, populations, and communities, which help in accumulation of energy by their availability. Initially, man identified these natural gifts when were available around him and learned to use them. It is well known that everything that comes from nature has some utility for men, but its utilization is only provided the availability of appropriate technology is known. Sunshine, wind, forest, and wildlife were present much before the appearance of man on the earth. In a similar manner, for centuries, coal and mineral oil were present below the earth's surface, but the appropriate technologies were not known to utilize them. With the development of civilization and technology, it has now been possible to use different kinds of energy. Thus, it can be said that any material may be termed as a resource provided appropriate technology is available to transform them into more valuable forms. Natural resources can be defined as things, materials of nature, which can be put to some use by human beings for their growth, development, and other necessities are called as natural resources. For example, air, water, soil, forests, animals, minerals, metals, energy, and other substances are some examples of natural resources that are utilized by human beings. At present, total global production is nearly enough to match the human demand for energy, materials, etc. If we judiciously distribute the resources available to us, the resources are not equally distributed throughout the world. We can realize the value of resource only when it is rather scarce. Overexploitation threatens most of our natural resources now. Conservation of natural resources. Forests, fuel reserves, soil, water, all these are categorized as natural resources. Natural resources are also called natural wealth or the gift of nature for the simple reason that humans and all other organisms depend on these natural resources directly or indirectly for their survival and existence. Air and water are necessary for all living organisms and form the basic principle of existence of life on earth. Water is also required for various industrial and domestic needs of human beings, which are increasing with a growing population. Soil or land is required for producing food and shelter by animals and plants. Forests or trees are beneficial in many ways, from wood to medicines to paper to almost every other essential commodity. Trees provide us with all. Fuel reserves are required for almost all domestic and industrial purposes. Thus, we see that our existence is impossible without these natural resources. What is of great concern is that due to the ever-growing demands, humans are exploiting these natural resources ruthlessly, which risks our existence. We are using these resources to such an extent for our demands, which leads to exhausting of these resources, reserves, and consequent depletion of the quality. Thus, Earth shall soon reach the brink of irreparable damage. It leads to great environmental concerns like pollution, global warming, and consequent effects like disturbances in water levels, critical damage to the earth. This creates the need to conserve the natural resources. We can do that in a number of ways. Water needs to be conserved as the potable water levels have come down. We can limit the water use at domestic levels. We can recycle water and reuse it wherever possible. We should prevent pollution of water sources. Forests are being exploited ruthlessly, so we should prevent deforestation and find alternative measures for meeting all needs. Alternative resources like solar power, wind energy, synthesized materials, etc. help us meet our demands in a sustainable way. Sustainable development ensures meeting present human needs, taking care of the environmental balance and future requirements. Nowadays, the concept of green technology is introduced to take care of advancement with natural preservation. Thus, all such measures can help us conserve the natural resources effectively. Effects of pollution. In recent years, the problem of pollution has become very acute. It is the industrialized West which takes it seriously, because it is suffering from its injurious effect. In India, sufficient attention has not been paid to it so far. So, we do not tackle this problem now. Future generations will suffer from the harmful effects of pollution. This problem assumes different forms such as air pollution, water pollution, soil pollution, noise pollution, and paper pollution. All this pollution results from the greed of man for getting more and more money. Trees have been cut down on an unprecedented scale, and large production by industrialization has assumed gigantic proportions. So, the main cause of air and water pollution is unbalanced industrial growth and urbanization and deforestation. The owners of industries dump waste material on the surface of the earth or in rivers. So, water is polluted and the waste on the earth produces different poisonous gases which pollute the air. On the other hand, forests where purity air have been cut down and new cities and industries have been established in their place. The cutting of the forests causes what is called the greenhouse effects. It results in the heating of Earth's surface, which has serious consequences for life on this planet. As a result, generations to come are likely to suffer from a number of incurable diseases. Timely measures must be taken to prevent pollution caused by industrial waste. Paper pollution of public life and mortality through newspapers, magazines, journals, etc. This kind of pollution is closely related to moral pollution. The results of our materialistic greed, corruption, is widespread in every walk of life. Bribes are fearlessly given and accepted, and laws of the land are evaded in very clever ways. Character assassination is another form of this moral pollution. Trees and plants turn carbon dioxide into oxygen, but when they are cut down, the air is not purified. Deforestation also causes soil erosion. The rich soil is either washed away by water or blown away by the wind. So, artificial fertilizers are used to maintain its productivity. Polluted water is used for watering the plants and vegetables. In this way, vegetables and crops are polluted. Pesticides are also a source of pollution to our crops, vegetables, and fruits. Water pollution resulted in the outbreak of cholera and gastroenteritis in a number of colonies of Delhi, suffering and death on a large scale. Water pollution has assumed alarming proportions, and urgent steps are needed to control it. Protection of our environment. An environment is gifted by the nature to nourish the life on the earth. Everything which we use to continue our lives come under the environment, such as water, air, sunlight, land, plants, animals, forests, and other natural things. Our environment plays a very significant role in making possible the existence of healthy life on the earth. However, our environment is getting worse day by day because of the man-made technological advancement in the modern era. Thus, environmental pollution has become the biggest problem we are facing today. Environmental pollution is affecting our daily lives negatively in various aspects of life, such as socially, physically, economically, emotionally, and intellectually. Contamination of the environment brings lots of diseases, which human being may suffer whole life. It is not a problem of community or city. It is a worldwide problem which cannot be solved by the effort of one. If it is not addressed properly, it may end the existence of life a day. Each and every common citizen should involve in the environmental safety program launched by the government. We should correct our mistakes and selfishness towards our environment to make healthy and safe from the pollution. It is hard to believe but true that only a little positive movements by everyone may bring a huge change in the declining environment. Air and water pollution is leading our health on danger by causing various diseases and disorders. Nothing can be said healthy nowadays, as what we eat is already affected by the bad effects of artificial fertilizers, which reduces and weakens our body immunity to fight disease-causing microorganisms. That's why any one of us can be diseased anytime, even after being healthy and happy. So, it is a major worldwide issue which should be solved by the continuous efforts of everyone. We should participate in the World Environment Day campaign to actively participate in the environment safety event. Time to recall. Resources are all these requirements of organisms. Natural resources are also called natural wealth. Environmental pollution is affecting our daily lives. Trees and plants turn carbon dioxide into oxygen. Air and water are necessary for all living organisms. Forests and trees are beneficial in many ways. For formative and summative assessment. Conceptual understanding. Time to answer. Answer the following questions. What is called a resource? Why are resources the requirements of organisms? What are natural resources? Why do we need to conserve our natural resources? What is paper pollution? Why should we protect our environment? Oral questions for FA. Fill up the following blanks using the clue kit. Natural resources are obtained from. Is a natural resource. Problems of pollution have become. Pollution is affecting our lives. We should correct our. Clue kit. Mistakes. Environmental. Acute. Coal. Nature. Hot questions. Write yes or no to the following statements. Resources are all these requirements of organisms. Natural resources are also called natural wealth. Environmental pollution is not affecting our daily lives. Trees and plants turn oxygen into carbon dioxide. Air and water are necessary for all living organisms. Communication. Write a short paragraph on the following pictures. Save trees, they will save you. For formative assessment, time to do. Project work. Make a recycled paper. You will need sponge, window screening mold, wooden frame. Old picture frame can be used too. Decal. Plastic basin, large enough to totally immerse frame. Blender, food processor for making paper pulp. White felt or flannel fabric. Staples or tacks for tacking screen on frame. Liquid starch, optional. Instructions. Select the pieces of paper to be recycled. You can even mix different types to create your own unique paper. Rip the paper into small bits and place into the blender, about half full. Fill the blender with warm water. Run the blender slowly at first, then increase the speed until the pulp looks smooth and well blended, 30 to 40 seconds. Check that no flakes of paper remain. If they are, blend longer. The next step is to make a mold. The mold, in this case, is made simply by stretching fiberglass screen, plain old door or window screen, over a wooden frame and stapling it. It should be as tight as possible. Fill the basin about halfway with water. Add 3 blender loads of pulp. The more pulp you add, the thicker the finished paper will be. Stir the mixture. Now, it is time to add the liquid starch for sizing. This is not necessary, but if the paper is going to be used for writing on, you should add some. The starch helps to prevent inks from soaking into the paper fibers. Stir 2 teaspoons of liquid starch into the pulp. Place the mold into the pulp and then level it out while it is submerged. Gently wiggle it side to side until the pulp on the top of the screen looks even. Slowly lift the mold up until it is above the level of the water. Wait until most of the water has drained from the newspaper sheet. If the paper is very thick, remove some pulp from the tub. If it is too thin, add more pulp and stir the mixture again. When the mold stops dripping, gently place one edge on the side of a fabric square, felt or flannel square. Gently ease the mold down, flat, with the paper directly on the fabric. Use a sponge to press out as much water as possible, wearing the excess water from the sponge back into the large plastic tub. Now comes the tricky part. Hold the fabric square flat and slowly lift the edge of the mold. The wet sheet of paper should remain on the fabric. If it sticks to the mold, you may have pulled too fast or not pressed out enough water. It takes a little practice. You can gently press out any bubbles and loose edges at this point. Repeat the step above and stack the fabric squares on a cookie sheet. Save one fabric square to place on the top of the stack to cover the last piece of paper. Use another cookie sheet to press the remaining water out of the stack. Do this outside or in the bathtub. It can make a mess. After you press the stack, gently separate the sheets. They can be dried by hanging on a clothesline or laying them out on sheets of newspaper. When they have dried, peel them off the fabric, and voila, you have paper. Life skills. Fossil fuels on Earth will not last forever. We need to conserve these fossil fuels. To conserve fossil fuels, one can choose to buy a hybrid car. Some of these cars will run on electricity combined with using small amounts of gas. Some hybrid cars just run on electricity. Either way, it is a great way to conserving natural resources when it is concerned with fossil fuels.